Dream of being in space again?
Sure.
And when you wake up, are you like...
I have a lot of dreams I wake up from very disappointed.
Hello everyone and welcome to Singularity One-on-One. Singularity One-on-One is a podcast feature of Singularity weblog where you can go and listen to it or download it in full. As you may already know, my name is Nicola, aka Socrates, and as always, I will be the man with the questions. Today, I'm very privileged to have Dr. Dan Barry as my guest on the show. Former NASA astronaut and veteran of 3 space missions, Dan is currently the head of faculty at Singularity University and co-chair of AI, Robotics, Space and Physical Sciences. Hi Dan, and welcome to Singularity One-on-One.
Hi Nick, pleased to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Dan, I know your time is very valuable, so I'll jump straight into the interview with the following question. Dan, can you please tell us a little more about yourself and your background, but especially why and how you got interested in space in general and becoming an astronaut in particular?
Sure. Well, flying in space was a dream I had for as long as I could remember. So ever since I was a little boy, I was jumping off tables and eventually got to the point where I could jump off roofs. Flying fascinated me. I went down to the airport just to watch the planes land and take off. The space program got me excited about, the dream of colonizing the solar system, of expanding out. And so it was really something that was with me from as young an age as I can remember. And, as you get older, these dreams sometimes fade. In me, they intensified. And sometimes you get waylaid. And I did that a little bit in the sense of having a few other careers as an engineer and a physician, but always really mostly just wanted to get out of the atmosphere.
So in that sense, what is the motivation or the ultimate goal behind being or becoming an astronaut, Dan?
Well, the goals of becoming an astronaut, I think, vary a lot. The goals in first grade are it's fire and it's smoke and it goes fast. So, the fireman, astronaut are fairly equivalent jobs from that point of view. But one thing that I found unique about the real job was this combination of both intellectual and physical challenge. I mean, you really do need to have a thorough understanding of the vehicle that you're in. You have to have a good understanding of the experiments that you're running. And you have to have, at the same time, some athletic ability to go outdoors and to simply not do rocket science, but unbolt a bolt from the payload in the payload bay and crank it up and take it over to the space station and bolt it on. There's not a lot of intellect there, but actually to do it well requires a certain level of coordination and gracefulness and strength, which you develop through training. So those are sort of the personal aspects of what you do as an astronaut. It turns out the very best part, though, is the camaraderie. It's going to do a really difficult task that you are passionate about with 6 people who over the course of a year become your very best friends, who are just as passionate as you are. And you go and you cooperate and you do this such a difficult task among the 6 or 7 of you, plus all the people who have helped train you, plus all the people that are out there supporting you. And that sense of accomplishment and that sense of friendship and bonding really is the biggest impact. It was the biggest impact to me about all of spaceflight.
So in that sense, do you see yourself as first and foremost an astronaut? Or perhaps a medical doctor, an engineer, an AI researcher, a teacher, an entrepreneur, or a father?
Yeah, it's definitely father. I mean, I was wondering if you were going to come up with that question. Having a family is the greatest thing that ever happened to me, and I was very fortunate to find the right girl early. And I was also very fortunate that she told me we were having kids. And the opportunity to have a family and have people that you love and who love you goes beyond any job you could ever possibly have. So that's an easy question.
So where do things such as family and work, for example here at Singularity University, fit in the overall life plans or life scheme of Dan Barry?
Well, yeah, of course. You have a family who you love and they love you, but you still want to contribute to the world in other ways. And so, you find your passions, you find the things that excite you, the things that make it so that you just, nobody's going to stop you from working on these things, right? You have dreams, and I guess there's two messages really. One is that a lot of people told me I could never be an astronaut, not smart enough, not athletic enough, didn't know the right people. And you just can't believe those. Those are people who are actually trying to be helpful. They're trying to protect you from disappointment, but in fact, those are the people whose dreams never came true. So you have to not listen to them, believe in yourself, but at the same time, you can't wait around for, yeah, I believe the dream's going to come true. You have to force it to come true. If it's something significant, if it's something you're passionate about, it's likely that other people are too. And you got to seek those people out, find them, get them to help you, you help them. But in the end, at some point, at some level, there is competition, and you have to compete, and you have to do absolutely everything you can to make people let you achieve your dream.
Speaking of significant things that we are passionate about, we're here currently at Singularity University. Do you have a 10 to the 9th project yourself? And if you do, would you mind sharing it with us?
I do. One of the things I'm absolutely fascinated about is the emergence of intellect, the emergence of intelligence, and ultimately sentience. So I would really like to be able to find the basis of that through artificial intelligence. I'm actually pretty happy to find the basis of that through any mechanism. Finding an alien would be pretty up there on my list. But in terms of the things I'm capable of, the talents that I have, my abilities to do computer programming, to build robots, to understand some of the aspects of artificial intelligence enable me to study this from one particular direction, which is trying to build a complex decision maker, a device that senses the world and at some level starts to understand the world. My hope is that intelligence and even sentience is an emergent property that comes when there's sufficient sensing of the world and sufficient processing of that sensing to gain an understanding, a situational awareness of the world around you and the ability to control that world. When those processes become complex enough, it may well be that intelligence, sentience simply emerges. We get an indication of that by looking in the animal world because we attribute sentience to creatures that have become complex enough. We don't generally attribute that to mosquitoes, cockroaches, but certainly chimpanzees, dogs, cats, yeah, cows, yeah, dolphins for sure, lower level animals, frogs, I don't know. But it's somewhere in there. Nobody really can make that distinction. So I think we're going to have a very hard time distinguishing whether an artificial intelligence is sentient or aware, because we can't even tell if biological creatures are. And we know at some level they are, and probably at some level they're not. Nobody knows where that line exists.
Have your ideas and perception of AI and the Singularity evolved before and after you joined Singularity U, or have they?
Yeah, I think that my view of AI has become much more sophisticated by associating with the people that come to Singularity University. In fact, it's a prime driver of why I'm here, is to learn from the other people who are here. And I know that the first time that I came to a meeting about Singularity and ran into Neil Jacobstein, that I had met someone from whom I could learn a lot and who had a deep and nuanced understanding of what the state of the art of artificial intelligence is. And Neil also led me to many other people. And then beyond artificial intelligence, as we start to meet people from other fields, Daniel Kraft and our energy people and our nanotech folks. And I started to see sort of this idea of convergence of technology along a common curve that may not be directly in the field of artificial intelligence, but the concepts that you use to study technology in one field actually generalize fairly well to many of these other fields. The other aspect of that is that ultimately an artificial intelligence is going to derive in a very multidisciplinary way. I really don't. I think the combination of computer science and micro scale fabrication, ultimately nanotechnology, that's just two examples of things which are certainly going to complement each other. So I think you're a bit limited if you only study a single particular field.
Dan, you briefly touched about the difficulties in evaluating artificial intelligence. So what do you think of the Turing test as a way of doing that?
Well, I think the Turing test, the idea that a judge can't distinguish between the verbal output of a computer versus a human, is an interesting but very limited test. I can imagine a computer that can pass a Turing test with flying colors. It has absolutely no sentience, has absolutely no knowledge of what it does. And there's been a lot of classic work done on this, the Chinese room problem, those sorts of things. So while I think the Turing test is an interesting mark along the way, I don't really see it, I don't attribute to it the significance I think that maybe many other people do. I think the idea of developing natural language is one component that will contribute to the complexity that would be helpful to generate an emergent, generalized artificial intelligence and sentience, perhaps. But I could see that happening with no language really at all. I think an understanding of the world, the ability to control it in a variety of ways, and a sufficiently complex presentation of that, implementation of that, may very well be sufficient without, what we would consider traditional language at all. So there are a lot of different ways to communicate. The other thing is that, we talk about human intelligence, but what is human intelligence? To me, there are so many different ways to be intelligent. So the classic way, of course, is sort of the SAT way. You answer a lot of questions and you're smart. But I think that's a very limited view of intelligence. I've met people who are so smart about understanding social situations, who can tell if someone's lying to them instantly, who get motivations of other people. People are smart about being able to design something that's beautiful and enticing. People are smart about being able to create music. People are smart about recognizing faces and understanding family situations. So we talk about intelligence, but we really gloss over intelligence. This idea that it's all about reading books, I think, is a very, very narrow view. So when we talk about artificial intelligence, I think we need to incorporate these things. It's not just something that comes up with all the answers to the questions on the multiple choice test. It really isn't. And in that way, when we talk about communication, I think language is in the same sense. Verbal language is a very limited way to talk about communication. I mean, think about body language, gestural languages, expressive things, artistic communications. There are just so many different levels of that. So I see the Turing test as a fairly limited measure of progress in the artificial intelligence world. Nevertheless, it's a nice benchmark, and it'll be interesting to see, the progression in satisfying it.
And what do you think of Isaac Asimov's 3 laws of robotics as a way of structuring our relationship with sentient machines and robots?
Yeah, so I think that Asimov came up with some great concepts in terms of how we are going to hope that our robots behave. Actually, hardwiring those laws in, I think, is going to be a challenge. But it's a small framework on which to begin the larger question of when you have a sentient creature, what rights are assigned to it? And when that sentient creature reaches a level of intelligence that's equal to or greater than human intelligence, what rights are assigned to that? So dogs and cats, I don't know if you call them rights, but they certainly we have ethical responsibilities to creatures such as that, to not allow them to be in pain for no reason, for example. And those kind of ethical guidelines are going to follow us into the world of artificial intelligence as we find these mechanical creatures or computational structures exhibiting behavior that you and I would attribute intelligence and sentience to. So I think that Asimov got an interesting and very good start from a discussion point of view, but it goes way deeper than that.
Ray Kurzweil is often criticized for being too optimistic. What, in your opinion, is our chance of surviving the singularity?
Well, I think that there's a lot of different definitions of the singularity. And rather than try to just go into wild speculation, which kind of almost by definition it is, I would say I am very optimistic about the idea that exponentially increasing technology, such as information technology that we have today, is going to make the world a better place and is going to alleviate a lot of human suffering and is going to allow us to expand our creativity. It's going to free humans from some of the mundane tasks that we've had to do. You know, when we were able as human beings to begin farming, having a community, allowed the beginnings of craftsmanship, allowed the beginnings of literature, because suddenly people's time was not 100% involved in simple survival. And we are still at a level where we spend quite a bit of our time generating the goods or the things or services or whatever we need simply to put food on the table and heat in the house. And I think that technology has tremendous potential to free us from those bonds and to allow human creativity to be expressed by so many more people, to free us from the bonds of mundane tasks. So I'm not sure about the whole singularity picture, but I'm very optimistic about the potential for technology to make our lives better.
Well, you mentioned the potential of technology for making our lives better and for alleviating suffering, but interestingly enough, much of the money coming towards artificial intelligence is coming from military agents. So, Dan, do you think that the process of arming artificial intelligence would change our chances of surviving a technological singularity in any way possible?
Well, I think that the concept of putting guns in the hands of robots is of great concern. And as those robots develop more and more artificial intelligence and are attributed more and more autonomy, I think there is a risk to that. And we need to seriously consider the potential for negative consequences. And in our current structure, we're really not effectively doing that. It's sort of the idea of having a gun that can shoot from a place without risk to our side, so to speak, is very appealing. And there is concern that at some point our side might be all of humanity. That's a scary thought. So, but it's not just guns in the hands of robots, okay? I mean, really what we're talking about is how much responsibility are we willing to give to autonomous mechanical systems? Because in the end, if the Skynet takes over, they're not going to need to shoot us. They just can turn off the water and electricity and we're already in a lot of trouble. So I think it goes a lot deeper than just the fact that military drives a lot of the funding for this. I think we need to, as these systems become more complex and develop more autonomy, we are going to need to find ways to control them. On the other hand, I think that the tools that we're developing in the artificial intelligence world have the potential to give us substantial control. But it's a serious question, and it's one that deserves deep discussion.
Dan, we're coming towards the end of our interview today, and I would like to ask you if there's a single thing, a single message that you would like for our viewers and listeners to take away from this interview with you today.
I think I already mostly said the big message, which is whatever you're passionate about, whatever it is that excites you, whatever it is your dream, you mustn't let anyone tell you that you cannot do this thing. And the flip side of that is every single day, you have to do something to advance that dream, to get closer to it. It's so easy to skip a day and then skip 2 days and then skip a week and a couple years go by and all of a sudden you're in trouble. So I sort of say a little bit in jest, but to some extent true. Worst thing that can happen to you is get a good job in your 20s, right? Because you don't want to get comfortable, okay? You don't want to get comfortable. The time goes by so fast. Every day, work at that dream. Every day, bring it closer. And you know what? Have fun while you're doing it.
Dan Barry, you're an inspiration for all of us here at Singularity University. Thank you very much for spending this time with us today.
I appreciate the invitation, Nick. Look forward to talking to you again sometime.
Thank you.